It is a jobs plan. It is revenue neutral. It does not raise taxes on those that are making the least.
Well, Herman Cain shot up in the polls thanks in part to his 999 tax plan. But the Nonpartisan Tax Policy Center has just scored that plan and says under 999, 84% of U.S. households would pay more in taxes than they currently do, and that the biggest impact would be felt by low-income Americans. Let's bring in our Jean Sahadi, who went through this report line by line. Tell me what the Tax Policy Center is saying here. How did they come to this conclusion? Because in the debate, Herman Cain said they're simply not correct.
Well, the Tax Policy Center is a highly regarded research group, respected by both parties, and so they worked with what they had, and they did a distributional analysis. Who's going to get affected the most by Mr. Cain's proposals? They found that people on the lowest rung of the income ladder would get hurt the most, and people at the top of the ladder would get not only not hurt, they would benefit greatly. So for instance, someone who makes less than $30,000 on average would see less money after their tax bill under this proposal than they do currently.
16 to 20%
16 to 20% less. People who make more than $200,000 would in fact see more money in their pocket, between 5 and 22% more. So it's this huge discrepancy. One thing the Tax Policy Center did not include, because again they didn't have the details they needed to crunch the numbers, was what the Cain campaign said it was going to do, which is help to relieve the tax burden on the poor under their proposals.
We haven't gotten these details on these quote-unquote empowerment zones that the Cain campaign has talked about, so we're still waiting for those. We've reached out to the campaign, have not yet heard back.
Me too. Nothing.
You as well. Has the Tax Policy Center come out and discussed how a 9% national sales tax would impact different wealth groups in this country? Did they argue that it will hit low-income Americans the hardest, and if so, why? Because Cain would argue otherwise. His campaign has said there will be no tax on used goods, and we really can't predict consumption patterns.
Well, I think, okay, there may not be a tax on used goods, but the truth is when you buy food, hopefully it's not used. That's a new good. When you're making less than $30,000 or you're at a subsistence level of income, most of your income goes to buy essentials like food, medicine, housing. So they would get, that's why a flat sales tax is considered regressive, because it hurts the poor the most. So that's why you want to come in with something that cures that regressivity, like a rebate to families to compensate them for the tax they've paid in. But it's a complicated thing, but looking at this score, you've got to do something, because it's so lopsided that it would be impractical to implement.
It's not one of the 9s in the plan, but I think it's a very important part. The elimination completely of capital gains tax in this country, taking that from 15% down to 0. Did the Tax Policy Center weigh in on who that would benefit and who it would not?
Well, basically that benefits people who have investment income. Typically people who have the most investment income are high-earning folks, like Warren Buffett, who you talked to a number of times. So they get a lot of their income from capital gains. So for them to go from 15% to 0, I mean, that's a big reason why the wealthy would get a huge break under this plan.